A very good afternoon, and still a beautiful day here in Davos. Alongside myself, David Goldstrom, is Mike Dixon, and together we're looking forward to this men's 30-kilometre freestyle race. Mike, very good afternoon.
David, it's great to be here. Davos, what a wonderful setting it is. A whole lot of work has had to be done to create the tracks here. Only a 5-kilometre track, though.
Well, here we are in the heart of Switzerland, one of the most fashionable resorts, but a mainstay stop on the tour, as you can see, almost at 1,600 metres. And the last man to triumph here, France's Maurice Magnificat, and he amongst the favourites for today's race. But of course, this is the home of one of the great racers all time, Switzerland's Dario Cologna. A man who's notched up quite a few successes, as you can see. 16 World Cup victories, and of course, a world and Olympic medalist. In addition to all of his World Cup triumphs. Didn't have good fortune last weekend, broke a pole, and that really ruined his race in the skiathlon last weekend in Lillehammer. So 18 participations for Dario Cologna, but still looking for that elusive first victory. Will it come today? Well, certainly after last weekend's disappointment, he'll be keen to put that to rights, but an individual time trial against the likes of the informed Martin Jonsrud Sundby is a difficult task for Dario and everybody else on the start list. Well, as you look at some typical holiday pictures here of Davos, we have no less than 83 competitors in the men's competition from 24 countries. And it's a race that has seen many a different winner here. 8 races have seen the winners like Vincent Vitors and Tony Livers, who actually shared this 15K examination back in 2007. Björn Daily, Matthias Fredriksson, Matti Heikkinen, Petter Northug, Johan Olsen, Maurice Magnificat, Anders Glösen, all have won in freestyle shape and form here in Davos over the years.
30-kilometer free technique here in Davos. Lots of success for you here in the past. You must be looking forward to it today, or sorry, tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure. I expected a lot, but yeah, I tried different. But after 2 weeks of World Cup, yeah, I feel in good shape. But I'm not the only one. We could see that many athletes can win this stage, and especially Martin Sundby. So yeah, I will push hard, and the snow is stable, good condition. It seems that it could be a great event, and I want to take pleasure first, and if there is pleasure, there will be performance for sure.
Well, we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Great way at looking at what is going to be no easy task there from Maurice Magnificat. But Mike, as the women raced earlier in the day, we're talking about 5-kilometre loops, so 6 of them on a demanding course.
A very demanding course. David, the total climb from start line to finish line, 1,094 metres. So a huge amount of lifting for their body weight up the terrain, which we will see some of. And as you say, quite a mind game as well. You've got to go 5 times around the same track. Yes, athletes will be in contact with other athletes, but really it's about you, the athlete, against the clock. Very different type of race. If this was a mass start over the same distance, we would still see 25 athletes with 1 kilometre to go in one pack. Today it's very different, and the strong mindsets, those who can dig deep into their performance, can take this titles, and Magnificat is one of the best at doing just that.
Well, the seeded athletes start at 16 minutes past the hour with Hans Christer Holland, and then progress to the man who leads the overall World Cup, Martin Jonsrud-Sundby, who'll be out at 29 minutes past the hour. Now, British interest in Andrew Musgrave, who wears bib number 50 today, and hopefully has learnt the lessons of last weekend. It's a very different race. When you have a mass start and you're rushing off, it's very easy to have collisions and accidents, and in Andrew's case, he broke a pole very easily, very early on in the race, inside the first 2 kilometres last week in the skiathlon in the classic section, and it was not easy to get him a new pole. However, what Andrew did was to react actually in the wrong way, because he tried to really be aggressive and catch up, and he used far too much energy. It's fine if that happens in the last 2 kilometres of the race, then you go like a bat out of hell to try and make up for the damage. But that's one of his characteristics. When he makes a mistake, he does get angry at himself, but you have to control that and use it in the right way. But nonetheless, the Brits have been down here for 5 days, and they look at, in fact, 6 days now for Andrew, because they didn't get involved in the relay, and so they've had plenty of time to get ready. And Andrew Young, by the way, goes in the sprint tomorrow, and he's really proved himself to have moved on a step or two. Be very interesting to see whether he can get into the top 30 and qualify for the sprint race proper tomorrow.
It certainly will. Young, he's been down here for a little more time, and that's ideal time to acclimatise, get yourself used to the higher altitudes here. And
look at that,
Davos.
Mike, 10 plus Celsius, and it was -8 at 6:30 this morning.
And also outstanding there was the low humidity, only 36%. Well, here's the track, as we said earlier, 6 times around this track. Look at the climb from the stadium. It's nothing but climbing practically from the start line to the 3 kilometres. And the journey back into the stadium, we don't see much of it on the camera, but the descent is fast in places, technical in places, but very much easier coming back into the stadium.
Well, as you see the start list here, it's going to be fascinating to watch 1 or 2, and not least Dario Cologna, who actually starts with bib number 48, which is 1 minute ahead of Andrew Musgrave. So there's a target for Muzzy to chase. But also we've got to keep our eyes on people like Francesco De Fabiani, who ran a good classic leg, but not such a good freestyle leg last week. Alex Harvey of Canada, who's yet to suggest that he's reached peak form. And Petter Northug, who wears bib number 46. And Martin Jonsrud-Sundby wears bib number 58. And he will be the last of the CD, well, the penultimate starter in the CD group, because Maurice Magnificat, the defending champion, actually goes with bib number 60.
I think that's a great place for Magnificat to start. He's got all the big names ahead of him. He's starting, what, 1 minute behind Sundby, 2 minutes exactly behind Northug, so he's going to get all the split times. Whether that's going to be a good thing for him or a negative, we'll have to wait and see, but all the information is there for him to react to.
So, plenty of smiles there from Dario. I wonder how confident he's feeling. It's a tough field, and I wouldn't have made him necessarily favourite today.
It's a tough call. We saw the stats earlier. He hasn't been on the high point of this podium here in 18 trials and 18 attempts. He desperately wants it though, David. But what we saw in Ruka, the first World Cup, he was off form by my reckoning by, well, 30, 45 seconds over the 15 kilometres. But hopefully he's turned that around today.
One minute to 2 in Davos. We're about to come under starters' orders in this, the men's 30-kilometre freestyle. Mike Dixon alongside myself, David Goldstrom, for this mini-marathon journey in individual time trial format here. 83 competitors from 24 nations. The seeded group will be kicked off by Hans Christer Holland of Norway, wearing bib number 32. It will be completed by Maurice Magnificat, wearing bib number 60, last year's winner. Martin Jonsrud Sundby, the overall World Cup leader, wears bib number 58, and Great Britain's Andrew Musgrave wears bib number 50 and is seeded. The good thing about Andy Musgrave is if he gets another good run in here and gets inside the top 30 and gets some good points, when the re-ranking comes in the feast points, then his accommodation and travel expenses are going to be paid, and that's going to be a bit of a relief to the British team, because most of the boys and girls in the British team these days pay their own flights, pay their own accommodation, buy their own food.
Well, you know, that's a massive incentive and a huge assistance to Andrew's season and the British team.
So, first man to get us underway, representing France, Adrien Bachscheider from Metz, just 23 years of age, lying just outside the top 30 in this season's World Cup rankings. 12th place in the 10-kilometre freestyle race in Ruka right at the beginning of the season, and as Mike will now explain to you, there's very little respite on this course.
David, so and the respite that you get, so the descents that you're getting, often very fast, but at the end of them there's some technical and fast curves, bends, so you have to have tense legs or reactive legs, so you never really get the full recovery within your main muscle groups.
6 times round the 5-kilometre loop, and temperatures from -8 at 6:30 this morning to +10 as we stand right at this moment at the beginning of this race. And I just wonder, on this very well prepared course, it's artificial snow, it's compact, the women were absolutely delighted with the preparation, the guys have been as well with the work that's been done here. I just wonder whether some of those technical chicane turns are going to cut up as this afternoon race progresses.
I think they will. There's Martin Jaks, the Czech Republic, just getting himself ready, and he's adjusting his clothing. I think he was prepared for the -5, the -8 that it was earlier, but he needs to be careful. Up the valley, it is a whole lot colder in the shade.
Devon Kershaw taking in a gulp of alpine altitude air there for Devon, and now in his early 30s from Canmore in Alberta, and like pretty well everybody on this start list, a full-time athlete. Didn't actually have a great season last year. He slumped to something like 93 actually in the World Cup rankings, and he has finished as high as 27, so that was a real disappointment. But he has in his time notched up a couple of victories and in fact some 6 podiums.
I remember as well at the Olympics back home for Devon, Vancouver 2010, 5th. I thought it was amazing, 5th in the 50-kilometre freestyle. So he is a distance man, but I think I agree with you, David, he's a little off form at the moment. Hopefully he'll get that back.
Little bit of the course is in the shadow, and that will protect the snow and the temperature there. But of course the servicemen have had plenty of opportunities since the end of the women's race, which felt a bit like the Norwegian nationals with so many Norwegians in there. But what on earth do you do about Teresa Johaug, who was the dominant force yet again? And what might we be saying if Martin Jonsrud Sundby actually wins this one in the sort of fashion he's been winning races early in the season in the Men's World Cup?
Well, form doesn't change quickly, and he's on an amazing form. We saw that in Lillehammer, we saw that in Ruka. So certainly he will be everyone else's favourite to take this title. The altitude may play a part. He is used to training camps at high altitude. Valsenalis, the Norwegian team, come to in October for their high altitude training.
Big cheer for Kurt Ampel, stalwart of the Swiss relay team from Pontresina, which is just down the road from St. Moritz, and the Cresta Run, supported by the Swiss Army, in which he's asked to participate from time to time, we should say. And now Jonas Dobler for Germany from Traunstein. And Jonas actually 15th in the skiathlon last weekend in Lillehammer, which I thought was a really good performance and actually was a personal best.
It was and he's only 24, David. Fourth at the Junior Worlds in 2011 in the 10-kilometre freestyle. So he has shown his early credentials, and I'm pleased now at the senior level, as you say, his personal best last weekend. This is the warm-up track, which runs alongside the exit of the stadium. So you'll see a lot of athletes just going through their final preparation.
Yeah, they will have all had to make some adjustments for the increase in temperature.
I think so, and you mentioned the wax technicians with this terribly low humidity, only 36%. It's so rare. Normally, we're seeing 80%, 90% sometimes. So that is a little test, an added extra for the wax technicians, because normally you're trying to wick away the humidity or the fluid build-up at the base of your skis, but very dry today.
That's Jonas Baumann. He just signed on to the anti-doping board, which all the athletes are invited to sign, to declare that they will compete in this sport on fair, honest and equal terms. One can only hope that that's the case, to be perfectly honest. Now one of the more experienced Finns, Ville Nusiainen. The men's team overall in Finland, it needs a couple of other men to come up from the junior ranks to support the likes of Nusiainen and Jari Järvi. He's now he's still only in his early 30s, but he's yet to win a race. He's been second, he's been third, but he's actually in his career, Nusiainen, only had a couple of podiums.
And I think, David, with the World Championships going to Finland next year, there's a lot of work to be done. They need to raise their game. Finland will be expecting, they'll be expecting, and I think that'll be a good kickstart to make sure that there's better performances in the future for Team Finland.
Tony Livers, who shared the victory here. It was you don't often get cross-country races shared, but to be honest, he hasn't done well. He hasn't won since then, back in 2007. So, but looks in good heart. Now, bib 13. Not everybody loves this, but it's the former Russian, now Canadian, Ivan Babikov to set us on his way.
When Babikov changed from Russian to Canadian, he really did give some impetus, I think, to the Canadian system. They could not believe how many hours Babikov was able to train, how much dedication he had, and that helped raise Canada's performances, I think.
Yes, individually he hasn't quite reached those heights, you know, still no podiums, and still, you know, looking for, you know, a top 5 finish, which would be really good. I mean, he's sort of, well, he finished a couple of seasons ago, he finished 7th overall on the Tour de Ski, and that was one of his really good efforts.
And a stage when he did set the fastest time on the final leg, if you remember, on that season. He started a little further back, but he had the fastest time to the top of the mountain.
So Ivo Niskanen, as you can see, 2014 under-23 champion, and Kerttu Niskanen well to the fore in the Finnish team. Kerttu just Lever just 23 years of age.
I like his hobbies, David. He likes food and sleeping.
Yeah.
So training, food and sleeping, and that's the life of a cross-country skier a lot of the time.
Well, one of the things that's really important is that he has the advantage of living in Vuokatti, where they've got this famous wind tunnel. And you can see already through here 3,200 meters, which is the second of our timing points. Bachscheider coming up to it now at 7:45. And at the moment, still the quickest guy up to 2.2 kilometers ahead of Rostovtsev of Russia. And he's got a good 10, 12, 25 seconds over Chris Freeman. But Chris Freeman's a better skier in stride and glide classic than he is in freestyle skate.
Ilya Chernusov now has, well, his heyday, his best performances, Sochi bronze medal in 50 kilometers in this technique. But he didn't do much last season. He's married to Selina Gasparin, the Swiss biathlete who came, I think, 6th or 7th yesterday in Hochfilzen in Austria at the World Cup.
So here comes Tony. Well, you know, a lot aspire, but few achieve a World Cup success. And whatever happens, that's going to stay with him for the rest of his life. But he's never really got back to performing like that ever again.
It was an inspired moment, David, and when you're racing at home, as he is today, sometimes you can dig into this reservoir that I think we all have if we ever can plug into it. And he did that on that day. I'd love to see him doing it again.
Yeah, he was 25 when he did that, which is generally, you know, just coming into your prime.
And you can often tell, can't you, the way an athlete sets out from the start gate. We saw that with Therese Johaug earlier. It was attacking from the word go. I know this is 30 kilometres, so you don't want to sprint from the gun, but you can see purpose, desire. And I didn't really see that in Tony Livers from the start, to challenge a podium.
So Kershaw, you can see Bachscheider's got the better of him, and he was 12 seconds off a kilometre ago. He's now 15 seconds off. So Bachscheider may have just started a little too enthusiastically, but only time will tell.
Look how busy this is. There's Jontrud Sumbi just taking in his final drinks. What's he got? He's only got about 12 minutes till his start.
He was interesting. He was talking after the relay team, and he was very much. He actually described it as my team. I think he's really feeling as if he's, you know, the captain of the Norwegian men's team now. I mean, who would argue with him, really? But there is this really good team spirit. And I guess we're looking at so much Norwegian domination, both in the men's and the women's. But it's up to the other athletes to, you know, to come up and try and match the performance of the Norwegians. Not easy.
Not easy at all, and I think a lot of it's cultural, the depth of the ski clubs in Norway, the interest from the fans forever in the newspapers. It is a big deal in Norway. Duviard setting off with purpose there.
Yeah, Kurdan Pearl approaching the 3.2 kilometre meet. And Pearl also outside. Duviard, you were just talking about him. He's capable, you know. 15, 30 kilometres freestyle. He's had a couple of top 10 finishes in his time. And he has the disadvantage of going so early, so everybody can learn off his splits in case he was to do something really amazing. But nonetheless, I could see him getting a half-decent result out of this, depending on how he is form-wise. In Ruka, he wasn't suggesting that he's reached anything like his best.
No, not at all. It's interesting to see Northug there. He's got, what, 20 minutes before his start, just taking on a little bit of food and drink. And you need that. It's a long journey, 30 kilometres.
Sure, Rota just signing on. Really the fastest finisher in the skiathlon last weekend, or last Saturday. And that was notable. He paced that race absolutely brilliantly. And, you know, he doesn't do anything big very often, but keep on the right side of him. So one or two others on the way whilst we briefly deserted you, Jespersen. But actually we're very early in the race, and Matti Heikkinen has started. Daniel Rickardson also soon to get away.
Tritcher just gone through there, David, taking 3 seconds off Bachscheider's early starter, the man from Leogang in Austria.
And getting pretty close now to the start of the lead group, or the seeded group I should say. Yevgeny Belov for Russia, 36 in picture there. Nicholas Dierhaug, and Nicholas also one of the Norwegians who's up and coming, improving. Babikov. Tritcher, the new leader, as you can see there, and 9 seconds back. Really too early, Mike, to, in a 30-kilometre race, to worry too much about this. We haven't really got any perspective at the moment.
No, not at all. Dierhaug, certainly a man in terms of freestyle, in terms of form, he is up there with the best.
Yeah, I think he's again one of these promising Norwegians who's going to continue to deliver. Polteranen, well, I think we all know how dangerous this man can be. representing Kazakhstan, unseeded today. But at his very best, this is a man who could easily feature.
He can. He's one of the rare athletes, though, isn't he, who is very accomplished in the classic technique, less so in the freestyle. I know he's been working a huge amount in the summer to turn that around, to make his freestyle stronger, and hopefully he can show us that today.
Yeah, but very good point. The bias for him is classic racing. That's where he's had most of his success, 3 World Cup victories to date.
And I think 7th, wasn't it, at the 50-kilometre when we were there in Falun, World Champs last year?
Indeed,
or this year.
7th in that, but you know, we've seen him be pretty consistent. But that bronze medal that he got in the 50-kilometre classic in Val di Fiemme in the 2013 World Championships was 50 kilometres in classic style. So now Hans Christer Holland, who's certainly been something of a revelation for the Norwegians right at the beginning of this season.
His journey into the team has been quite amazing. I know he's 26-year-old now, but mostly a club skier, and he was kind of ignored for many years by the Norwegian system. And his amazing results just before the World Champs in March last year, he had to be included, but they didn't race him much at the World Champs.
Podium skiathlon last weekend. What a confidence boost that will be.
Absolutely, and I'm so pleased they've well, they can't ignore him. He's that good to be making this Norwegian team regularly. Good pacing, a decent start from Tony Livers. Well and truly in touch after 3 kilometres.
Yeah, well, again, a little bit like Serena Bonner, who was the best of the Swiss women earlier today. He could probably ski this blindfold round here. Be an interesting test, wouldn't it? 34 underway, Schurota. And now, this is a seasoned campaigner. But this man also came to note winning a bronze medal in the skiathlon in the 2013 World Championships. And hails from Lillehammer, and Lillehammer's course last week, Mike, was as tough as you'll get on the World Cup circuit.
Especially those long, some 2 minutes, 3 minute continual climbs.
1,000-kilometre climb.
Absolutely, and you know what, I think when you show form on that Lillehammer track, it's not unsimilar to what we have here. The huge climb, we mentioned it earlier, from this start line all the way up to 3 kilometres, you're practically climbing.
I'd be very interesting to see how Schurota goes, because 4th in the skiathlon and previously at Ruka, 3rd in the 15 Classic. So he's got ability in both codes, and now here's his teammate, and there's no question that the Norwegian men's team has strengthened.
Oh, it really has. Northug has led it for a while, but soon be quietly sat behind for a short while, but then has gone to the front, so it's an amazing team.
Personal best, he was 2nd in the skiathlon in Lillehammer, hails from Trondheim, or just outside, and of course he was winning in Ruka.
He certainly was. I love that camera shot where you see where all the energy is coming from in the freestyle. It's just skating your way around the track with these 1.8 to 2 metre long skis on your feet.
And before anybody emails in about the win in Ruka, of course that was a triple, but he actually was first in the 15k classic part of that. So strangely enough, it doesn't seem to count at the beginning of the season, but it seems to count at the end. I thought Legkov actually looked quite sprightly.
He looked a lot better. I think after his gold medal in the Olympic year, the season after was poor by his amazing standards with all his marketing, but he's a different athlete again coming back into this new season.
Yeah, you saw him in Ruka when he was 6th in the 10-kilometre freestyle race.
He had all that fight back again, which he didn't possess any of that last season. And so maybe just a quiet year last year, but he's back. Faded
a little bit in the pursuit race, but, you know, he's such an animal if he's feeling good.
He's like a growling monster, and you know, this course, it suits a fighter, and he is an absolute, he's like a chest on legs, he's all engine, right. Less effective technically, so hard worker does well on this track.
Yeah, Olympic champion, 50 kilometres, any Olympic champion you respect. And here's another talented Norwegian, and there the stats are there for you to see. 3 World Cup podiums. That tells you that he's knocking on the door. and second in the 15-kilometer classic race here in Davos. So he's had success at this altitude, which is also quite relevant. And over 30 kilometers in a mass start race, he's been as good as 5th. So interesting to see how he progresses. Jean-Marc Gaillard, France, 3.2 kilometers, and he's he's taken the lead from Duvier. So 2 Frenchmen travelling quite quickly early on. And then Bernard Tritcher and then Bachscheider.
Just look at the cam before the storm. David Northug's just going through his final preparations, and then he's going to unleash from the start gun.
Tony Livers, by the way, through the first 5K in 10:52. Now, he's ahead of Tritcher and Bachscheider. Just to give you some perspective, he was 10 seconds down on Gaillard earlier on at 3.2 kilometers. Martin Johansson, decent racer, and sometimes I think might be just a little bit under the radar.
I think, like you, I'm expecting great things, and well, hopefully it's today from this man.
He's not a name that sort of catches the eye big time at the moment, but again, Sweden are regrouping.
They're building, they're re-strengthening, aren't they? And they've got a lot of good juniors in their system, and that makes a nation strong, rich, when you've got that development, good development of juniors.
And again, you know, no youngster, 31 years of age, Johansson. So again, it's taken a while for him to find his form.
And just looking at Northug there, David, of course, he won this race, the 30-kilometer freestyle, in 2011. And he went out hard from the start line on that day, and I'm sure he'll try and do the same again.
Finnhagen Krog. There you have it, World Team Sprint Champion freestyle. They'll be looking to do some damage tomorrow in the sprint. And there's a really good shot. Just gives you a taste of the climb.
That's a huge climb. It's not a long climb, that one, and you've just come off a fast descent with a spin to your left to come up this hill. And, well, Tritcher is still, well, it's very early in the race, but nibbling away, getting the new lead time again.
Yeah, Tritcher through 7.2 kilometers. Tritcher actually would be about 10 seconds down on Duvier and Gaillard going through the 5-kilometer point. I think that was right. Yeah, the 5-kilometer point, and through that 5-kilometer point, Tony Livers 8.5 seconds down on Duvier and Gaillard, who are within 3-4 seconds of each other. 46 underway. Remember, Andy Musgrave starts with bib number 50. And we're looking for a more fortunate and better performance. He shouldn't have the sort of traffic problems that caused him to get a snap pole last weekend, not in this individual time trial, but it's a completely different mental test. And that means that Andy, like all of these people, Mike, has got to take a different approach to this race.
Very much so. It's about feeling your comfort, how hard you can press without over-pressing, without burning up your energy stores. 30 kilometers over, well, nearly 1,100 meters of total climb. Holland making it look easy, that steep hill.
Yeah, that's a second ahead of Gaillard, and 3.5 ahead of Duvier, 7 ahead of Tritcher, and now, well, big cheers for Dario Cologna. Magnificent ambassador for Switzerland in this cross-country sport, but also a magnificent ambassador for Switzerland, period. You know, he's one of their headliners, 29 years of age, and in the World Championships, a bit disappointing, only second place in the skiathlon. But remember, this man is an Olympic 15-kilometer champion, he's an Olympic skiathlon champion, and at his best, you know, he is still a very big force to be reckoned with. 13 career wins for Dario. And Shirota now coming up. This will be interesting for me. I do think that this is a man who really knows how to pace races.
And his light body weight, David, his beautiful, efficient technique, he never stresses, and I think you're right, his pacing is intelligent. He knows exactly how to bring every last little bit of energy out of his body at the right time.
Well, there's the man they've all got to beat on paper, at least, Martin Jonsrud Sundby. Interesting. Talking to Roy Young, the British manager, he said that, you know, they've done several things with Andrew Musgrave. One is that, and you can just see him walking to the start, or will be in a moment, that with the Scottish Institute, they've been working on his fitness, his core strength. But the other side of it is actually concentrating on getting the technique absolutely spot on.
I think it's so crucial when you're pushing your body around these tracks. If you're wasting any part of the technique that's wasting energy, you really don't stand a chance against the smooth skiing we saw Dario leaving Cologne, leaving the stadium. It's so efficient. If you've got any efficiencies there, you are wasting so much energy. So it has to be smooth, right, and technically perfect.
So Francesco Fabiani, a real find for Italy. And this man, Andrew Musgrave, by the way, just already on his way. So we'll be keeping tabs on him. But Fabiani, as I said, started very strongly. Looked impressive, actually, in the first part of the skiathlon, but then faded, and faded quite badly because he faded outside the top 30. But he was right bang there in the classic part. And this is a man who has shown some competence in junior and under 23 racing, but he's only 22.
He's a little bit like Niskanen, though. He's really good, amazingly high standard in the classic technique. But look at his skating. It's very efficient, but he's not as accomplished in the freestyle.
But you might remember him last year, got his first World Cup win. Do you remember that surprise in Lahti, 15-kilometre classic? And he certainly wasn't on our shortlist.
Took everybody by surprise. Legkov is working hard, David, but 11 seconds to this point, he'll be disappointed.
Alex Harvey, stalwart of the Canadian team, that's for sure. Martin Jonsrud Sundby wears 58, and the defending champion Maurice Magnificat wears 60, so almost the whole of the seeded group away. 56 is Peter Northug, and Duvier coming up now at 7.2 kilometres. And you can see there, equal, absolutely equal with Treccia. Up at 10 kilometres, I can tell you, Bachscheider leading Devon Kershaw by 26, and now Peter Northug. What sort of race are we going to get out of him today?
Well, you always know he's going to give his best. He's not renowned as a against the clock man, although he disproved us all in 2011. That was one of his first ever against the clock victories. He's very much a pack racer.
Yeah, he's a hunter.
He is an absolute hunter, and his strategy is unbeatable. He knows when in the pack, he knows exactly what to do, where to be, where to let all the rest do the work. But now it's against the clock, and not normally as strong in this event.
Well, it'll be interesting to look at the contrast in techniques as we get deeper into this race.
You can't fault this man, though, in the way he pushes himself, Peter Northug.
Well, he is second in the overall World Cup rankings, 299 points. Mind you, Sundby, I should say, 466. Won the second race in Ruka, that was the 10-kilometre freestyle race. And, of course, last weekend in Lillehammer, 152 points gained there with a victory. And Jonsrud Sundby, you can see there, looking to cement a hat-trick of World Cup titles. And it's hard enough to do one, let alone two, let alone three in a row.
Quite amazing, and the intent that he started with, you know what his strategy is to have the first time here and at the very end.
But he's, you know, he is a man who's actually had injuries and had illness as well, so he's had to overcome that, come back. It's not easy, and you think what it takes to keep fit, keep well for, you know, what is now his third consecutive season going hunting for, you know, a third consecutive title.
It's quite amazing, and I love the positivity from Jonsrud Sundby. He's not a negative man, and I think that's why he remains so healthy and so strong.
So over to you, Mr. Magnificat. In one sense, you've got all the advantages because you know, or will know, thanks to your coaches dotted around the course, that every split that's relevant for you. 29, so again, a man really at the height of his powers, and 3 times a World Cup winner. He's won a skiathlon, he's won the 30-kilometer freestyle, which he won, of course, in 2014.
The train of people there we saw on the left, they were all in the slipstream of Ledkov, trying to stick with the faster skier, and it was a little difficult there for Magnificat to get past.
Yeah, there's still a few of the CD group to come up to the first check at 2.2 kilometers. Gaillard at the moment is the fastest at 5:17. Holland, Shirota within 3 seconds. Duvier within 3. Tritscher, but that's, I'm thinking, is going to change pretty quickly as the last few of the CD group come up there, and obviously keeping an eye on Andrew Musgrave. We haven't seen much of him yet, but we'll keep you informed. Well, Andrew Musgrave, not a great start, I have to say. Mike, you've tracked him down through the first 2K.
Well, I hope it's all about his pacing. He's in 31st position, 16 seconds off the best at the first checkpoint. 32nd position now, but 16 seconds, that's quite significant to the first checkpoint at 2.2 kilometers. Shirota plus 9 seconds. De Fabiani.
Interesting, Colonia, by the way, at the 3.2 seconds, half a second behind him is Colonia, and then Gaillard a second behind him. Shirota 3. Shirota again steady pacing at the moment, but of course his disadvantage is that there are so many good men who are starting after him, so they can live off his splits. But I'm looking for him to have a very fast finish. He's not going to show his cards early.
And I think, David, often we see in this race, the big distance race here in Davos, we often see someone, an athlete, say leading at 20 kilometers, leading at 21, up to 25. But if you have hit it too hard, you will be punished here at these altitudes. 1,600 meters, you're 17% less oxygen here than you are at sea level. It is a huge factor.
Sundby through at 2.2 kilometers at just 1 second quicker than Gaillard, 2 quicker than Holland, 3 quicker than Colonia, 4 quicker than Shirota. Duvier also 4 back, and Battle has been joined. Just waiting for Magnificat to come up to 2 kilometers, and then we'll have a first full check of everybody through, and then everybody heading, or the majority of the field now, heading to the 3.2 kilometer course of the seeded athletes. And we know that Magnificat has gone through 2 seconds quicker than Sundby. So there you are. Battle really has been joined, and everybody has an early perspective now.
Very much. And you know what, Magnificat, he showed us over the years that he loves this venue, and it suits him absolutely down to the ground, because he is if this was a pack, he wouldn't be able to get away. But when he's racing just himself against the clock, he can dig into this this special power that he has. It won't be easy though, and it is a long journey still ahead of him. Petter Northug, look at this start, David. This is 3 kilometers. It's not often we see him so far back at this stage, 17 seconds.
Well, we were just talking about Andrew Musgrave. Is Andrew Musgrave, remember, Andrew Musgrave's wearing 50, just and Petter Northug, you know, have they got it right and everybody wrong?
Well, maybe Petter Northug is just using Shirota, his teammate, who's a lap, effectively 5 kilometers ahead of him. He's just tucked in behind him. So again, maybe it's the wisdom of Petter. He knows he can turn it around in an instant.
Well, that's a very good marker to have, and there's
it is.
Jons will suddenly be coming up. I mean, what do you like about this man, Mike? You know, What about his skiing? What about his technique?
It's his absolute strength. He's dancing his way up that hill, and those legs are so powerful, and they're created in the gym. He spends endless hours in the gym, and I love the way that he looks at every aspect of his body. The weaker bits he will make stronger to make the best out of this situation.
He's very effective of getting the power down, isn't he, with those
huge arm strength. So is this man, Bjorn Dali.
Yeah, he's been sponsoring and looking after kids race earlier today, Bjorn Dali. It's great to see these legends still so involved in the sport, and particularly at this grassroots kids level here.
Oh, totally. And what, 45 wins, World Cup wins, I think Bjorn Dali had in his career. He was an amazing athlete to watch, and his dramatic collapses across the line.
Interesting. Magnificat 3.2 now. Remember, he was up by 2. Sundby has increased his advantage over Holland by a second. So what's Magnificat going to do here? Magnificat, well, you can see there, 0.1.
Now, who's ahead of him? He wants to get past, or is he stopping for a drink already? That's unusual to take on board. Well, unusual, 3 kilometres in. Keep the fluids topped up. Why not?
Through 5 kilometres, a little ahead of Magnificat and Sundby. Dario Colonia ahead of Duvillard by just under 2 seconds. Christa Holland and then Anders Glersen. The next two, Jean-Marc Gaillard now 5 off. Schirota 6 to 7 slower than Colonia. You're looking there at 3,200 metres. And the gaps are opening up now. Just have a little check at this point where Andrew Musgrave was down outside the top 30, wasn't he?
It's looking better for me, David. Now, Musgrave Andrew has just gone through the 5 kilometre, only 17 seconds adrift. So he had a comfortable start, and he's maintained that deficit, which means he's picked his pace up.
So this is a little further up the field at 7.2 kilometres. Jespersen from Duvillard. And Duvillard, we know, was a couple of seconds behind Colonia. That was at 5. So that gives some perspective to it. But not even halfway, these guys, yet.
There's the drink stop. It's a sensible place because you've come on a big descent and then that little rise, so you're not so much out of breath. You can manage to gulp down some drink.
These guys are so important, these coaches. I know that Roy Young, the British team manager, has taken the position out in the country to give Andrew his splits, and the British team actually is fairly strong, and Philip, who is the chief of the team today, as he was in Lillehammer, is actually Swiss. So he will know this venue. So between him and Andrew, I'm sure that they've worked this out, or they've certainly worked out a plan which they hope will bring Andrew into the top 30 at the end of the day.
Would be great. Or bet, you know, he has the
ability to go even better than that. It's not his personal best. Yeah. His personal best is 13th in a World Cup at freestyle. But, you know, solidly inside the top 30, I think, would be a good pick-me-up after last weekend.
Very much. Look out that we'll get these trains of athletes. As soon as a faster skier goes past, you glue yourself in the slipstream. It makes your journey, although they're going faster, it makes the technique and the journey a little easier. Of course, they're travelling at, what, 28 kilometres, 29 kilometres an hour on average.
Colonia, 5 seconds behind Jespersen. Again, that sort of is suggesting to me that it is early days yet, but I'm just, as I said, he has to be one of the favourites, but he wouldn't have been at the top of my favourite list, if you know what I mean. I think, you know, not having any Nordic Ski World Championships, things like the Tour de Ski and the Canadian innovation that comes in March will be very much to people's fore in their thinking this season about what they go for.
I think the Tour de Ski after Christmas will be one of the big key events of the cross-country calendar, and of course everybody wants to win that for the huge amount of World Cup points potential within those 10 days. And of course there's a bit of money involved as well. Strong French team. Gaillard just 5.8 seconds off. There's Muzzy leading this train of athletes, so they know that he's the man to get in behind.
Not at 17.2 kilometres. Let's add that.
No, that's the athletes behind, so just get a split time on Andrew.
It's quite good actually for him to be there, Mike, because he's out of trouble. And he can actually race at his own pace. He can set his own pace. What you don't want to be is second or third in that train. And they're disappearing on one of the descents here. There is no respite here. You won't find much flat. I'll tell you where you'll find the flat. The first 50 metres and the last 100, and that's it.
That's so true. And some fast descents in between, straight, but never too much on the straight line. You've got to work around these bends. De Fabiani there, under 23 leader at the moment.
Maurice Magnificat at 5 kilometres, just to bring you up to date with the state of play. And he's leading 10:35.3, a whisker ahead of Sunby. Cologne 7 off. Robin Duvier, France, 8.7. Hans Christer Holland, 9.7. Noah Hoffman of the United States, 11.7. He's the best for his country. That's one man we've slightly overlooked in the early stages. And then Glersen, Gaillard, Schurota, 14 seconds off Magnificat and Sunby. Is there a problem, or is Schurota not panicking? Is he the wiser man, I wonder? But we just have to wait and see. And then he's just ahead of De Fabiani, who you saw momentarily. Great crowd. And what a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day if you're a skier. It's a beautiful day if you're a spectator. Sunshine, blue sky, fresh air. There's that real gulp of fresh air. There certainly was this morning.
Oh, beautiful. And you know, and Davos, well, it's known for its even its walking paths and cross-country skiing paths, 300 kilometres worth. So it is a beautiful, refreshing area.
Well, you live in the Highlands, so your air's pretty fresh, but I live in the centre of London, and I can tell you the difference between taking a gulp of this stuff compared to London is unbelievable.
Ah, it is. It's a different. And remember, many years ago, so many people with ill health would come here to recuperate.
Well, in fact, that's how it all started, wasn't it? You know, spas and health, and the British coming out to Switzerland, who really, you know, started that through health, but then ultimately started alpine ski racing as a competitive sport.
Absolutely. Muzzy looking very relaxed but strong through the woods there. Got a little roadblock on the drink stop. Another coach was handing a drink to one of his athletes, so you're having to read the track all the time.
Jespersen still up there, Northug.
Well, Northug still using Schurota as his pacemaker, who's done 5 kilometres more. And you know, this is probably clever racing, letting someone else take the work, do the work for you.
Yeah, Schurota 34, and Peter Northug there is 56.
But the pacing, Northug will probably be told that he's 30 seconds off and will need to pick it up.
You can see the effect of the increased temperature, can't you, on these tracks, and it will be particularly prevalent on the downhill chicanes, on the cornering. Unfortunately, we're not seeing too much of that, which is a real problem. But there's Sunby, and that's a big bite, 14 seconds ahead. But remember, Sunby being chased by Magnificat, there was nothing between the two.
Now, you know, he's beginning to see a lot more of Peter Northug, who started 1 minute ahead of him, and he's already beginning to close that down.
And I have to say, though, if you check between 5 kilometres and 7.2, what is interesting, Mike, is that actually I don't think Sunby has made that much progress, because Jespersen was actually 14 seconds down then. So actually Sunby and Jespersen are racing at the same pace at this particular moment.
Much the same play, but look at Magnificat. Surely this is going to be an advantage to him.
Well, there was a cigarette paper between the two of them before. 3.8, so okay, 2.2 kilometres. Interesting, because
7.2.
Yeah, but what this shows is this is that first climb out of the stadium, and Magnificat has made time as he did on the initial loop.
And he seems to lose a little bit marginally on the descent back to the stadium. So he's gaining on the climb, losing a tiny little bit on Sunbi on the descents. But it's certainly a close race.
So this is the state of play at 7.2 kilometres there. Everybody who matters is through, and we'll give you a little check on Andrew Musgrave the next time.
20th at that point.
20th, so Muzzy, certainly in terms of position, doing quietly a good job. So here at Davos, for a lot of them going to plan. What do you think about Andrew Musgrave? Certainly improved.
He certainly has. That early worrying 2 kilometres was just him obviously settling into his pace. 16 seconds behind at that point. And now he's in 22nd position at 7. All the big names having gone through the 7.2 kilometres.
So 22nd inside the top 30. World Cup points at the moment. If we were to stop the race right now, he'd be winning some of those.
And he's only 3 seconds behind Alex Harvey, Curtin Pearls there, big names all around him. I think as well, David, Magnificat and Jontrud Sundby, they've got a good 18-second gap between them and third place. So Muzzy's time looks even better behind in terms of time, behind the third place. And that's only at quarter distance. Well, just 7.2 kilometres.
10 kilometres, it's Anders Glersen who's leading from Robin Duvier, who you can see here is challenging Tony Livers for the advantage. This is at 17.2. So this is the 4th of 6 rotations, and Duvier, well, 18.4 seconds. That's a good, healthy chunk in his part of the race. What you have to relate to is the fact that Duvier is 20 seconds behind, well, he was at 10 kilometres, 20 seconds behind the likes of Sundby and Magnificat. But the key 4 players in this at the moment are Magnificat, Sundby, Jespersen and Duvier. So Jespersen and Duvier are important pathfinders at the moment. And the question, you were looking at Peter Northug shadowing Shirota, slightly concerned. I saw your worried look about the fact that he was some 48 seconds off the pace.
Yeah, I felt it at 7.2 kilometres. That's a long... out of anybody in the world of cross-country skiing, Peter Northug can turn pace around quicker than anybody, but at 48 seconds adrift, I think he might be beginning to change his strategy. Yes, use his teammate to drag him around 5Ks, if you like, but he's now beginning to have to look at the clock. 48 is a little bit out of the race at this stage. I think he'll turn it around, though. Muzzy 24th position now at 8.2. That's 43 seconds behind. And Peter Northug 52 seconds behind, 34th position at 8.2 kilometres.
Sundby through 10 kilometres in 21:27, and Magnificat now plus 0.6. So what he had was 3 odd seconds last time, but actually that's evaporated again. So similar pattern to what's happened in the previous rotation. The second kilometre in the second rotation has actually gone to Sundby, and he's just gathered him in very easily. What I find more interesting is the fact, though, that Glerson was 18 seconds behind, and Glerson is still only 18 seconds behind at the 10-kilometre point on Sundby. So having a really good race. And Robin Dubiar was 21 behind at the previous check. He's only 22, 23 behind. Jespersen was 18 behind. He's lost a little bit of time. He's now lost 5 seconds in the split between the 8.2 kilometre and 10 kilometre mark. So in 1800 metres he's lost 5 seconds. So Jespersen just suffering a little bit in that regard. Glerson coming up here wearing 46. Here he is.
Very tall, powerful athlete, using his upper body to compress through these poles, get more spark. Looks like Muzzy still leading this train train with Belov in there behind him. And this is 17.2 kilometres now. So Muzzy's still looking very efficient, so just over half distance, looking well and truly comfortable within himself, technically keeping it as smooth as possible.
Glerson, who won the 15-kilometre freestyle race here last year. It was Magnificat who won the 30 the year before, but Glerson clearly having a really good run, and also he was runner-up in the sprint last year here in second place, so he had a fantastic weekend. And clearly the altitude of Davos, 1600 metres, and the climb and the descents really suit him. What they do here in Davos is very civilized. They invite the women to race in the morning, then we have a bit of lunch, and then we do the men's race.
And it's getting, well, what are we, local time 5 to 3. It's getting a little darker now with these high alpine mountains around this valley, and so the temperature's dropping just a little.
Colonia in this gaggle. There he is in the dark black traditional race suits of Switzerland.
Just under half distance for him, 28 seconds behind at the moment, but that will change when Sundby and Magnificat comes through, so he needs to pick it up, I think, at half distance if he wants a podium, if he wants a top 5 even. There's the left-hander, so you've got big pace coming into this steepest of climbs. You'll change gear into skate 1 now. It's so steep you can't double dance up it.
It's a really good example of, you know, how you find yourself finishing a downhill and you're instantly into an uphill.
And it's a very icy left-hander. You need to relax. Just let the skis work their way around that corner. Otherwise you're tensing up and wasting energy. Holland, so technically easy. Huge strength through the arms. That's one change this year, this summer, David. All the teams are looking at the power, the amount of energy coming through the upper body, stomach and arms, and developing that further. I wonder what Bjorn Daly thinks about the whole thing. He took it to a high level. He was the cutting edge of making changes technically and in all aspects of his performance in the 90s.
Well, that is what happens when you get someone like Bjorn Daly, who looks at he's forensic in the way that he prepared, looking for every little edge, and that's a characteristic you find in most sports in the champions who really succeed. Shirota, we haven't really talked about him for a while now.
Well, do you know what? He's landed lucky because look who's come past him, and he's gluing himself to Sundby, Jontrud Sundby, who's 1 lap less around this track than Shirota. Northug struggling a little, I think, to stay with it.
So now Shirota gets the benefit.
Yes, he does, but you just think that Petter Northug is going to try and stay with this. Let Sundby drag him around, even though Sundby has pulled a minute back off Northug. Curden Pearl.
So 10 kilometres, Sundby a whisker ahead of Magnificat. And everybody of the leaders, all of the leaders now through 12.2 kilometres. Sundby now 21 seconds ahead of Glerson. We're still waiting for Magnificat to come through. And a little further up the course, 13.2 kilometres, Glerson. Glerson's very clearly a major player in this at the moment, providing he doesn't fade. I mean, you know, he's 20-odd seconds back, but, you know, he's a a second ahead of Duvier, 3.6 ahead of Jespersen, and he's 23 ahead of Shirota. And at the moment, I still think that this race is quite fluid.
It is, and we maybe haven't picked up on Yevgeny Belov. He's glued in behind Muzzy, who is a lap fresher, if you like, and that's helping Belov now into 5th position, only 15 seconds behind Gluersen.
Yeah, he's the top Russian, mid-20s, and Belov, who didn't get any medals. He was top 10 in the 15-kilometer World Championship in Falun, and also 8th in the skiathlon. So pretty solid performances.
And his credentials, Belov, as a junior, were quite amazing, and he hasn't quite landed in the senior category as much as his potential showed when he was younger.
Well, this is the first race of the season where he's actually demonstrating some of his ability.
Look at this. Now, this has got to be hurting Petter Northug, who the pace has picked up dramatically for Skul-Rota, who's 2 laps fresher, sorry, 1 lap fresher, sorry, more expired in the legs than these two, Sundby and Northug. So 5 kilometers further down the track, the guy in the middle.
It's that little bit more hunched and over his skis, isn't he, Shirota? But he's smaller in stature.
I think
those three, I just wonder how much damage they could do.
Well, they're not going to. It's not going to change. I think Sundby's going to have to do all the work because he's got the pace, the enthusiasm, and the drive. Well, there's Legkov at 17.2 over half distance, nearly a minute adrift.
12.2 kilometers, so not yet halfway, but Sundby 4.6 seconds down on Magnificat. This can work 2 ways, you know, Mike, with 3 of them working like that. They might get too fascinated with each other.
Possibly. I think the other two, the two behind Sundby is only clock watching and engine watching. He's just doing his own race, but pushing harder than anybody. The others 2 won't take the work on us. Petter Northug certainly won't. Well, there's Magnificat now. He's still pushing it.
Yeah, well, they've just yo-yoed a couple of seconds either way, those two, right the way through the course, haven't they? But, I mean, the reality is Magnificat slightly back into the lead. Gluersen 24 seconds back. Duvier 26. Jespersen 27, so they're all pretty close. Gaillard, Jean-Marc Gaillard still in the hunt, 31 seconds. Belov 40 seconds back, likewise Hans Christer Holland. Tony Livers 41, and remember he started with bib 18, so that's a big disadvantage. Shirota 47.6 seconds, so he's going to have to, if Shirota wants to have a place in this race, he's going to have to make a move pretty soon.
He very much is, but look, with Petter Northug and Shirota tucking in behind Sundby, Petter Northug has gone from 34th effectively up into 19th in a very short period, and that's just sticking in behind Sundby.
And I've got Musgrave through 24th place, 66 seconds off the lead, just behind Fabiani. And also a couple of seconds behind Finn Hågen Krogh of Norway, and actually about the same behind Legkov and also Didrik Turnseth, and he's actually only about 4 seconds down on Northug.
Yes, and do you know, at that point in the race, well, looking at Muzzy at the half distance, 15 kilometers, he just needs to pick up 10 seconds to move from 19th at that point up into the top 12.
Well, we are looking for him to manage his energy.
And that's just sticking in behind Sundby.
And I've got Musgrave through 24th place, 66 seconds off the lead, just behind Fabiani. And also a couple of seconds behind Finn Hågen Krogh of Norway, and actually about the same behind Legkov and also Didrik Turnseth, and he's actually only about 4 seconds down on Northug.
Yes, and do you know, at that point in the race, well, looking at Muzzy at the half distance, 15 kilometers, he just needs to pick up 10 seconds to move from 19th at that point up into the top 12.
Well, we are looking for him to manage his energy. And this is the situation there. It's fascinating. This is really interesting, because a couple of men are going to have to make a move. One of them's Nortuk, Shirota's another, and in a sense, Muzzy is another for Great Britain.
.1 of a second.
Well, at the half distance, Magnificat ahead by a whisker from Sundby, Glerson 21 back, Duvier 22, and Musgrave holding his position.
He certainly is, not losing, not gaining, and 22nd position, 105 behind to find 5 seconds. It takes him into 18th position, so well and truly in the sharp end of the race. But he's not far off Cologna's time at the half distance, just 9 seconds off Cologna.
Yeah, but if you compare where Cologna is the best part of a minute down on the leaders at the moment. Tony Liver's running quite a good race, 41 seconds. He's actually travelling as fast as Hans-Christer Holland, so that's a pretty good effort from Tony Livers. One of his better efforts so far at Davos. Can he finish it off? That's the big question.
Verhagen Kroch leading this little group here. With the lack of snow, David, it's not the widest of track to get past as Glerson attempts to. He wants past this group. Just feels they're a little too slow for his great pace.
Yeah, Glerson going really well. 21 seconds, I can see that. Remember, Glerson's a sprinter, so he can also handle the endurance, but it should be interesting to see what he can find. Here's Muzzy.
And look at that, Belov just tucked in, having done a lap more than Muzzy, and this is still great performance from Muzzy. He's beginning, I think, to pick it up a little more.
Yeah, the clock is talking about Kershaw, but we'll get another check on Muzzy in a moment at 27.2.
Well, that's 27 for Devon, who's trying to tuck into Muzzy's pace here, and it's helping him, it's assisting him.
Yeah, Devon Kershaw at the moment, I'd say, is actually almost like one of those sort of pathfinders. Looks as if he might have a few moments in the big chair. Jespersen also in touch with this, though. You can see maybe 4 Norwegians at the moment in the top 10 here.
It's looking good once again for the Norwegians. Magnificat is going to have something to say, and he is the man who's so good at pushing himself against the clock on his own. In the big group, the big pack skiing, Magnificat, in a sense, hasn't quite got the strategy or the turn of pace to react when there's a break, but on his own, on a tough track, almost unbeatable.
And of course, the other thing that they're well aware of are the splits from Glerson, because, you know, Glerson, you know, is leading Duvier, leading Jespersen, and, you know, they know he's 21. That's Magnificat and Sundby particularly know that Glerson is 21 seconds down on them, but he's got the call at the moment on Duvier and Jespersen and Haaland and Gaillard and Livers and also Shirota. Shirota behind Glerson, only 25 seconds, but that doesn't really tell the story. Kerdan Pearl actually travelling quite well, 46 seconds only behind Magnificat, and he'd be 2 Swiss in the top 10 places at the moment at the half stage.
That's good going. Look at this. What a pace change for Northug and Shkurota to stick with Sundby. Much faster.
Well, he's really lifted the tempo, hasn't he, Sundby? And there you can see the gap there to Glerson of 24 seconds. Now, it was 21, so these three working together have increased the tempo. There's no doubt about that. But of course they are now into the second half of the race, so it's very soon. It's got to be decision time for Northug. It's got to be decision time for Rota. They can't stay. If they have ambitions, winning the race, they've got to move.
Hey, with Rota having completed 5 more kilometres, it's a big advantage that he's in with the pace of Jonsrud Sundby, who's the strongest athlete, well, equal with Magnificat today, and that really is helping Sure Rota's performance at the moment. And Peder Northug is surviving in behind Sundby, knowing that he has to stick with him to raise his game. Now,
this has been a good couple of kilometres for Magnificat.
Once again,
it is that first through 2,200 metres, and that seems to suit Magnificat better than anybody else. But now, if form is true, in the next kilometre, he's going to lose that.
In body language terms, I just felt that Magnificat was beginning to struggle a little more than Sundby. Sundby just ice calm, and the beautiful, efficient technique. Magnificat beginning to drop and collapse a little more through the legs.
Now, Holland and chasing Duvian 9.7, so just having a look at that. Yeah, that's Holland, who was 44. He was, what, 12, 14 seconds back.
Just as Scheider comes in to set 1:08, well, that's going to be better, I think, David, by at least, what, 3 minutes?
Yeah, it's about, I mean, the race a couple of years ago won by Magnificat was won in, what, 65?
60, yeah.
And I think, they're going to be that much quicker. So 10 seconds for Bing of Germany.
I'm just looking, everybody having gone through 17.2, the big names, Legkoff 24th, Andrew Musgrave 25th, 1:21 behind, but well in touch with another 10 athletes just ahead of him.
It really does depend on how well Andrew is managing his energy and how much he's leaving himself for, I would say, the last 7K.
Yes, with Andrew leading that train of, what, 8 people, ideally, if he was tucked in behind, say, Sundby, the journey would be that little bit more efficient, that little bit easier. So it's a pity he hasn't managed to hook in. Oh, there he is coming through the stadium now. Well, Belov's deciding to go ahead, but that's Devon Kershaw going to his finish.
Yeah, and you think that Devon, well, at one point it looks as if he was going to take the lead, but I'm not so sure now. Coming towards the line, but there's the line. Whoa! Second place, Bing can stay in the comfortable chair a while longer. Thomas Bing from Germany, from Metz, mid-20s, and a bronze medalist at junior or under 23 world level back in 2013. So Tony Livers, now this is interesting because Livers has been there or thereabouts. I mean, he was, last time I had a look at Tony, he was 47 seconds behind Magnificat. Now that is a decent performance. There he is, number 18, black suit. '17, who's just started ahead of him, was Chernousov, who's tried to glue himself onto his ski tails.
So 1,100 metres of climbing, 30 kilometres distance, and 100 metres left.
This should be the new leader, Kodan Pearl, because he's travelling 46 seconds faster than Magnificat and Sundby. So this is a very good run, actually. And now it's going to be really interesting to see how well this time of Kodan Pearl's holds up. So the crowd happy that they've got a Swiss up there, but interesting to see what Cologne can do about this. At the moment, I have to say that both Livers and Pearl are better than Cologne.
It's impressive, very, very impressive. Was there an advantage going earlier? Not really. The track has broken up a little. And I think it'll be a 1 hour 6 minutes race today because this snow is so dry, there's no humidity, 36%. Very aggressive snow, mostly machine-made snow. So I reckon about 1:06.
Sunby was 52 seconds, 53 seconds back. He's pulled it back to 49 at the moment. So this is where I'm sensing that a little bit of pace and acceleration might come in from him. Duvier, very solid race in 4th place. You know, this is good stuff. The man wearing 22. Not too keen on the French suits. I actually preferred them when they were yellow and black. It made it slightly easier to pick them out from distance. And the German suits are really weird this year.
Yeah, it's unusual.
Really, I mean,
they got slated in the press when they came out, when they were announced first of all.
Yeah.
But you get used to them quite quickly.
Yeah. Well, there's the situation. And you can see no Germans on that page. But actually, as I said, Shirota's just quickened up a little bit there as well.
5 Norwegians there in the top 10 on that page.
Yeah, I was reflecting on what I thought of the German suits, and I thought it was, well, I thought the design reminded me of someone who'd just not been too well.
Oh dear.
Well, there you are, Kernan. Sunshine in your face. Nice drink, good race, well done.
Yeah.
Good World Cup points, I think. You know,
great job.
top 15.
Well done. He had a lot of that race on his own, which always makes it more difficult.
Well, particularly going with bib number 7.
Dolodovic, 42-year-old.
Look at the difference. 9 minutes slower.
42 years old.
Yeah.
Although Bjorn Dahlen in the biathlon, it doesn't affect him at 42-year-old. It affects most people. 106. Well, I was trying to get a calculation. I thought the winning time would be around 106, dead on, or possibly 105.30 at best. Kurdenpel, that's certainly a strong performance.
Leaders coming up to 20 kilometres. Krista Holland through the 20 kilometre. Well, just having a look at this. Yeah, in fact, through 20 kilometres, Sundby by 300ths from Magnificat, and Glersen 23 seconds back. He hasn't really, he's been that 21, 23 seconds back the whole time, and Duvier 28 back. Just having a look at that. Duvier's quickened up. He's gained 3 seconds back there, and Gaillard 36. So Gaillard also accelerating through there. He's pulled back a bit of time as well. So I wonder what's happening up front there with Martin Jonsrud Sundby. It's not a danger point at the moment for Martin Jonsrud Sundby, or indeed Maurice Magnificat, but just a sign of 1 or 2 finding a bit of pace, unlike Tony Livers, who's now beginning to lose a little bit of ground. Shirota picked up another couple of seconds, so he's quickening. Looking at 13.2 kilometres, and Magnificat, Sundby, Glersen, not much change there.
Good to see Muzzy again for the 4th, 5th time up this climb. Belov out there looking at it. It's a good time from Belov, and mostly due to the fact that he's hanging on into the fastest skier, Andrew Musgrave, ahead of him. So that's Belov at 27.2, off the pace by 48. Even this bend, when it's so icy, it's a little tricky. You've got good pace coming in there, 45, 50 k's an hour off the big final descents.
Getting a big cheer, Tony Livers here. Look at the way he's finishing. That's good.
Can't give much more than that. The legs just to keep the beautiful flowing technique coming into that finish and then have nothing left in the legs.
Tony Livers ahead of Kurdan Pearl. So the Swiss 1 and 2 at the moment, and still holding on to the position in the chair. Colonia in the black. 48 seconds, little bit of improvement there.
It's a little bit. He's certainly not going to get the podium today, David.
Well, you know, there's not much between him and Shirota at the moment now. Yeah, I think this is getting particularly interesting now, Mike, because obviously everybody's now putting in their run for home, as it were. They're upping their game and really looking to, you know, finish as powerfully as they can, whatever they've managed to retain in terms of energy.
If anything, and it's quite incredible, after 5 laps, so getting to 25 kilometers distance, all of the athletes seeming to up their pace, find something in that last final 5 kilometers when the body is at its most fatigued. Beautiful, easy cornering there at huge pace.
Glerson, by the way, only had 5 seconds over Duvier at the 20-kilometer point, but he's really opened that up to 12 seconds now. So Glerson accelerating, Duvier coming home, 18.7, so he goes into the lead. But remember, what I just said was that actually Glerson has taken 7 seconds out of him. 23 coming home, Robin Duvier there. This is Jean-Marc Gaillard. Gaillard was just behind Duvier, but he's finished with pace as well. So that is a really good finish. So 2 really good French performances.
Outstanding, and just the gap from Sundby to Glerson is extending still. So Sundby picking up, keeping the pace strong and stronger.
Final phase, and everybody entering the tank, and there is the current leader, Mike Dixon, alongside myself, David Goldstrom. The closing stages of this Davos 30-kilometer freestyle race. Musgrave still in the top 30.
He certainly is. 24th at the last check, over 1 minute 30 adrift, so dropping a little bit. Sundby picking the pace up at the sharp end.
Yeah, distance for Muzzy to go.
Muzzy, he's just got about 3 kilometers left.
Right, so World Cup points look very much on the cards.
In fact, he'll be through this, still this checkpoint to go, so World Cup's looking good at the moment. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, we know that his personal best is 13th. That's going to remain today, but it's really the pick-me-up after the disappointment of last weekend, which is important. Belov, and 43 seconds, the difference for him. And here is Magnificat with just under 7 kilometers to go, but you can see 9.5, and the dynamic isn't there.
Well, I think we saw that, David, at the previous checkpoint. His body was just beginning to, he'd kept strong and steady, but then all of a sudden the energy was beginning to be spent too quickly, and the technique disappeared, and he's looking in a huge amount of discomfort there, but still has 7 kilometers to go, just under 7 kilometers to go.
Yeah, so there you've got the facts and figures. You can see Cologne there, quite a way round. But what's impressive is also about Sundby, you know, that now he's managed his energy so well, and now seems to have the extra gears to be able to deal with his opponents.
Quite amazing. And Schuh-Rotha, I think, helped Sundby, because eventually Schuh-Rotha went ahead of Sundby on his final lap, and that took the pace a little faster as well. And of course, Peder Northug, not taking the lead in any of that, tucked in behind Sundby.
Good race. France 1 and 2 at the moment in the clubhouse, so to speak. Jespersen of Norway, decent effort, only 18 seconds behind. Livers 28.3 seconds behind Jean-Marc Gaillard. Heikkinen of Finland, not really seen that much, but at the moment occupying 5th place, so he's likely to get some decent points. Belov the best for Russia, Pearl, and then Chernousov, who was tracking Pearl all the way, and Krista Holland now into 4th place. He's Knudsen of Norway, decent effort, only 18 seconds behind. Livers 28.3 seconds behind Jean-Marc Gaillard. Heikkinen of Finland, not really seen that much, but at the moment occupying 5th place, so he's likely to get some decent points. Belov the best for Russia, Pearl, and then Chanusov, who was tracking Pearl all the way, and Krista Holland now into 4th place.
He's not happy, shake of the head there. Holland, he started very strong. Well, maybe that was his undoing. He started so strong, has faded in the last quarter of the race.
Yeah, Holland, who was behind Duvier by about 14 seconds. That was at the 23.2 kilometre point, and has missed out. Here comes Shirota in the red at the back there for Norway. Whoa, just makes it ahead of Gaillard.
Oh, and he really picked the pace up. Well, his coach has said you've got to find 5 seconds, and he's not only that, he's picked up 6 seconds to turn it around.
Well, I did say that, you know, he finished the strongest of everybody in the skiathlon last weekend, and I thought he would pace it pretty well, but where's it going to, what sort of position is it going to earn him? He's going to be top 5, isn't he?
I think he is, and
yeah, I mean, if you look at it, you've got Glursen out there, you've got Magnificat, you've got Sundby, Duvier, Gaillard, so he's right in there.
Well, there's Glursen, and I think Glursen's going to fade a little from this point on. He doesn't have anyone else around him. He will be given the split times. So efficient though, Glursen, just focusing entirely on his balance, his technique.
Well, Glursen's lost another 3 seconds to Sundby, or Sundby's gained another 3 seconds over Glursen, whichever way you like to look at it, and that's in the last couple of kilometres. So Shirota,
clever racing.
Yeah.
And as you said, great pacing. It was all about the pacing.
Norway, France, France, Norway, Norway. 3 Norwegians in the top 5 at the moment, and of course Sundby still to come.
Now, I'm just wondering, with 1 lap to go for Magnificat, for Sundby, what can the Frenchman bring out? Can he pull that 10 seconds back? I think he can pull some of it back on the first 3 kilometres from the stadium, the hard work section, the big climb, but he doesn't seem to be as competitive on the journey back into the stadium, the easier part of the course.
Yeah, well, through 25 kilometres, Sundby 10, almost 11 seconds up on Magnificat, 30 on Glursen, and that is the real big difference, because Glursen had been travelling pretty steadily, 21 to 24 seconds behind Sundby and Magnificat throughout most of the race, but now in these final decisive stages, Sundby's got the pace.
Sundby certainly has, and someone here who hasn't is Dario Colonia. How he would have loved to have the pace today, but you know, David, I'm not sure it's even going to be a top 15 today for Colonia.
But it's interesting, Shirota at 25 kilometres was 45 seconds off the lead, but he was behind Duvier by 5. He was behind Gaillard by 17, and he was behind Glursen by 15. So just look at how quickly, because he's taken the scalps of Gaillard and Duvier, and he'd taken Jespersen before, so he's overtaken them in the last 5k, and if Glursen weakens, that could open the door for Shirota to maybe get on the podium in 3rd place.
Well, I think last we saw of Glursen, it was a lonely journey out there on his own, and he did seem to be losing energy more than having the fight for the line.
Gledkov crosses now 69. Bit of fitness, bit of conditioning for him today.
I think so. He's slowly building, but he won't be happy. He's trying so hard out there. We saw this early push, it was severe, and not in the races. He wants to be at the sharp end. He's in the top bracket, but he wants the top.
So at the moment, Shirota in the lead from Gaillard and Duvier. So Great course design here in Davos. Pity we don't have a few more cameras out. I'd really, really like to see the last 2 kilometres running down from home. You know, it's just so disappointing that we missed that.
That's such a
because it's part of the craft. Disappointing that we missed that.
That's such a
because it's part of the craft, isn't it? You know, how you handle these downhills. You'll see it in the sprint tomorrow, but in a, you know, in a truncated form, but nonetheless.
Well,
when you see an athlete do that, you recognise the pain.
Yes, look at the amount of oxygen required. Just gasping for air, like a fish out of water. Just the body's demand for oxygen to get all these red blood cells oxygenated to give you the energy.
Glerson less than 1,800 metres from home, and he had a 13-second advantage over Gaillard. Now, when we last saw him, he actually had a 7.9 seconds. So far from weakening over, so it's suggesting that maybe Gaillard was actually the one weakening, given Shirota's time of overtaking him. So, but Glerson is actually travelling quicker, and he's actually, this is the interesting thing, is 14 seconds quicker than Shirota with less than 1,800 metres to go. So this will be fascinating, because this will give us an idea about the relative speeds of the two.
Yeah, definitely. And well, look who's made a move. Petter Northug has left Sundby. Sundby cannot react to stay with them, with only what, well, 2.8 kilometres to go. Well done, Petter Northug. He's judged it well. Sundby 31 seconds ahead at 27.2.
But here comes Glerson, and remember what I said, over Shirota had 14 seconds, and they've travelled at the same speed, those two, Shirota and Glerson, for the last 1,800 metres. Glerson ahead of Shirota. It's 1-2 for Norway. Jean-Marc Gaillard on the podium in third place for France. Then Robin Duvier just off, and then Jespersen for Norway, Holland for Norway. 4 Norwegians in the top 6. So just about on the hour for the likes of Martin Jonsrud-Sundby and Maurice Magnificat for their races. Not too many to come home of the seeded group. It's obviously going to be between, well, is it going to be between? Because the reality is that, you know, surely Sundby's got the advantage. Magnificat now, you can see the problem that Magnificat's got. You look at this, 10, 11 seconds. This is Sundby's race unless he falls in a ditch.
But look what's happening to Magnificat. This is a massive loss of energy, and you know what? He's going to be, he's all survival now to keep that 11 seconds ahead of Glerson.
So he, you know, like what we're saying is we thought that Magnificat would be potentially a podium, but actually now the likes of Shirota have a better chance of staying on the podium.
Possibly, but he's still got a decent margin of survival there ahead of Glerson. Has Magnificat.
I think it's getting
seconds.
very tight now. Dario Cologno in 14th place there. That's you know, 1 minute 37. That's a chunky distance back. Devon Kershaw in the top 20. Musgrave.
Just check on Muzzy.
Dario Cologno coming into the stadium, lots of Swiss flags. You can see how little snow around there is. They made this all with artificial, and remember we're up at, well, not quite 1,600 metres, but just below it, and look how popular he is. He's really being helped home here.
He hasn't got that magic, the drive, the dynamic moves that we see him at his best, and he's well off his best at the moment.
Yeah, not yet at his best, but, you know, Tour de Ski.
He's there or thereabouts, 30 kilometres, 1 minute 60 behind. It'll be 1:30 by the end of the day. Musgrave, Andrew Musgrave at last check, 28th position, 2:11 behind. He's likely to lose a little on that as well. That was at 27
So he's very tight to get a point or two. Well, here we go, the run for home now. Anders Glersen for Norway in the lead, 14 ahead of Sjurota, Maroma Gaia in third place. Then Jespersen. We actually haven't praised Jespersen, but that's a good race there for him, ahead of Hans Christer Holland, who lost pace. And, you know, Tony Livers, the best of the Swiss, but in 7th place. That's his best result for ages.
It is. And we haven't mentioned Petter Northug for a little while, David. We saw him a couple of times. I think he has the potential. He's running in 5th position. I think he can pull back 10 seconds to depose Jean-Marc Gaillard in the last, 2 kilometres. I think Northug can do that. That's what he's trying to do now by breaking away from Sundby.
Well, if he does that, he'd be going after Sjurota as well.
And yes, of course, Sjurota, who of course dethroned Gaillard.
Yeah, this is nip and tuck stuff now. They're all on the way back down now. Well, here we go, the run for home now. Anders Glersen for Norway in the lead, 14 ahead of Sjurota, Maroma Gaia in third place. Then Jespersen. We actually haven't praised Jespersen, but that's a good race there for him, ahead of Hans Christer Holland, who lost pace. And, you know, Tony Livers, the best of the Swiss, but in 7th place. That's his best result for ages.
It is. And we haven't mentioned Petter Northug for a little while, David. We saw him a couple of times. I think he has the potential. He's running in 5th position. I think he can pull back 10 seconds to depose Jean-Marc Gaillard in the last, 2 kilometres. I think Northug can do that. That's what he's trying to do now by breaking away from Sundby.
Well, if he does that, he'd be going after Sjurota as well.
And yes, of course, Sjurota, who of course dethroned Gaillard.
Yeah, this is nip and tuck stuff now. They're all on the way back down now. Not much further to go. It's all going to happen in the next couple of minutes now between Martin Jonsrud Sundby, who looks absolutely nailed on. A Magnificat 24-second loss, and that was going through, what was it going through? 28.2 kilometres, so 1,800 metres to go. And if your legs are like jelly, and his legs will be like jelly coming down those final descents there, it's terrible, because actually you want to control, but you can't control.
And the very sad thing for Magnificat, he hasn't been in the traffic. All the big names were ahead of him. He didn't manage to get onto them, so it's been a very lonely race, and he's going through shades of severe pain at the moment to try and hold on to his second, which I think is looking unlikely.
Yeah, and this is the problem, you see. Apologies, it's not anything we can do anything about, but the reason that we're actually looking at the man in the chair is because there aren't any cameras bringing the final men home. They're running through 1,800 metres, and it's not until they get within the stadium complex that we start to see them.
And this is Northug trying to pull back those 10 seconds in the last 1.8 kilometres. So is it possible? If it is, then he's the man who can do it.
These races need a running clock, and you need to be able to see where he is. Look at that weight on the outside ski, lets it go around, takes that well straight into the double poling. He's got plenty of energy. Look at this look at this release here, and he's chasing Glersen, and he's now past Sjurota. He's chasing Duvier, and he goes into 4th place. That just shows you, really, doesn't it? Just a little bit too much. And here comes Sundby on the right of your screen to get yet another set of points there, and by 28 seconds eclipses Glersen. That's another 4.6 second gain in the last 800 metres by Sundby, and we know that Magnificat is out of it, so unofficially it's Norway 1, Norway 2, Norway 3, and it's Sundby, Glersen, Sjurota, Gaillard the best from all the other nations, Petter Northug in 5th place, and then Jespersen and Holland. So what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Norwegians in the top 10.
Amazing, and this man is amazing. He makes it look so easy, but the intensity that he manages to hide, the pain that he manages to hide when he's going round, he is on his limit. And I feel for Magnificat out there on the track. We should be seeing him any second, but maybe indicating that he's fading even more, that we haven't gone back onto him. Oh, here he is. When you hit the wall, David, you really hit the wall on this course.
Yeah, you can actually see and feel the pain that he's going through at the moment. And we thought that he would be the top Frenchman, but as it is, you know, Jean-Marc Gaillard, very good at long distances and hard as nails. And here comes Magnificat now. Where's he going to go? Oh, he's gone second. And that second pushes Shirota off the podium, and it breaks up the Norwegian 1, 2, 3. So I feared, I think like you, that he was going to lose even more.
Well, that's right. Well, he was detached. He was only 4 seconds ahead.
He's found 4 seconds in the last 1,800 metres.
So pleased for Magnificat. He put so much effort into it, and he died a little with 2Ks to go, but he found some magic.
He found 4 seconds in the last 1,800 metres. He was quicker than Sundby by 4 seconds. What a man. Full credit. I didn't think that was going to happen.
But I think we said at the start, if anybody can dig deep into a reserve, some kind of mental and physical reserve, it's Magnificat. And you know what? He had to plug into all of that today.
Absolutely brilliant by Sundby. Gutsy. Dug deep there by Magnificat. Glerson in third place. Shirota fourth. Gaillard gives France 2 in the top 5 and 3 with Duvier in the top 10. And Tony Livers from Davos finishes in 10th place, but there's the interest to have only 3 nations represented in the top 10, and 6 of those places go to Norway. Sundby marches on. He is the World Cup leader, and he's just taken another 100 World Cup points, 15,000 Swiss francs, and he is the champion of Davos. Over 30 kilometers freestyle under beautiful blue skies.
Well, the closing stages of the 30 kilometre, and well, one of the most testing courses in the whole race calendar, and especially here in the altitude of Davos, over 1,600 metres, the highest point of the course. Katz coming in for Germany. It's a good position. It's 25th.
Well, I'm going to leave you in the safe hands of Mike now for the stragglers who come home. But no disrespect, everybody who does this deserves a pat on the back. What a race. Sundby commands. It's been another Norwegian double, hasn't it? Therese Johaug dominant in the women's race. And this is the man of the moment. This is the man to beat. Martin Jonsrud Sundby. So almost now for the stragglers who come home, but no disrespect, everybody who does this deserves a pat on the back. What a race. Sundby commands. It's been another Norwegian double, hasn't it? Therese Johaug dominant in the women's race. And this is the man of the moment. This is the man to beat. Martin Jonsrud Sundby. So almost time for us to take our leave. There will be no changes to the top places now, and the race is effectively done. Still a few out there to come home, but I'll leave you in the safe hands of Mike Dixon.
Thank you, David. And well, the congratulations there, and boy does he deserve it, for Magnificat, his team, other team coaches, team athletes. They all respect what he had to do out there. He was starting at the back of the seeded group and didn't manage to hook into any skier which would assist him around 30 kilometers. It was a lonely race out there, but he managed to hang on to his pace and take the second position here. And of course, the prestige that comes with that, and he's done so well here at this location over his racing career. Always brings something special to his game here. Does live at altitude himself at 1,400 meters, and the body adjusts, gets used to the lack of oxygen, and becomes more efficient if you live at these kind of altitudes. So still some athletes out on the track. Of course, we had 83 starters today. That's the big names all having completed their 30 kilometers today. And well, we're just going to take a very quick break as the later starters make their way over the last 3 kilometers of this 30-kilometer racetrack. Well, as we are beginning to lose daylight here in Davos, 3:45 local time, and still some athletes out on their 30 kilometers, but nobody will touch the time of Martin Jontrud Sundby. Another victory for him today, and a wonderful start to his season, with Magnifica in second and Anders Glursen from Norway in third position. 74 in our picture. Michael Norberg, 74 from Sweden. And the faster athlete behind him, having pulled back 30 seconds from Liechtenstein, is Philip Hilg. And boy, it must feel good to be going up to the top of the final huge climb and then the slightly easier journey back into the stadium. But yes, the French flags are flying, and quite rightly so, with at the moment Magnifica in second place, Gaillard in fifth, and Duvillard in seventh position. So a really fantastic day. 3 of the French boys in the top 7, and once again the red suits of Norway are sprinkling the sharp end of the race with well, Sundby first position. There he is, thumbs up to that, and you deserve it. Brave attacking race from him. And Norway third, fourth, sixth with Northug, Jespersen 8th, and Holland 9th. So a very good day for the Norwegian team. Another chance to look at Magnifica, who kept so strong for the first 20 kilometers, 22 kilometers of the race. But this man, Jontrud Sundby, had the better pacing, had company on the track as well, which I think assisted him on his journey. And we saw the effort that he put into it. When he crossed the line, he was on the ground gasping for a full minute, and then composed himself to take the champion's chair, where he will remain. And well, the spectators, they've enjoyed this event. I hope you have. I certainly have. And what a pleasure to see this man, Magnifica, trying so hard to knock Sundby off his incredible run of form into the start of this new season. Up in Finland, Sundby was the main man. In Norway, once again, Jontrud Sundby was the main player there, taking the victories. And once again today, the third World Cup of the season, showing his dominance completely, destroying the field here over 30 kilometers against the clock. Individual time trial racing. Number 62 just coming in, Kaiser from Switzerland, just under 8 minutes behind. And you know, it's still good skiing, it's still a good performance. Nothing shameful about that when you're learning your trade on how to push yourself around these tracks. 23-year-old Kaiser, the student and the top class racer, and a top class experience for him today to be taking part in this 30 kilometer against so many big names, all the athletes that he's been watching for so long. Ostapenko from Belarus, final few meters and across the line now in 54th position, bib number 69 starting. And what a good feeling to be entering this stadium for the final time. Just the sharp left-hander, the right-hander I should say, 65 coming in. I've actually raced this race. It was in classic technique, 30 kilometers a couple of times, long time ago in the mid-80s. And the track doesn't change. The altitude effect doesn't change. And the toughness of this sport doesn't change. Well, the cowbells are certainly heavy and can sometimes be irritating trackside, but you can switch off to that when you're focusing on your own game to bring the best out of yourself. Little stumble there from Shibotko coming around the final bend, and Shibotko, vastly experienced from Olympics, 4 Olympic Games and some 7 World Championships in cross country, and a little off the pace for him today. 70 coming in, Rankel from Estonia. Good technique, good solid composure on his skis in the final meters, and 6:20 off the pace. Hauk from Austria, Hauk in 5:26 behind. I think he'll be a little disappointed with that. He was hoping to be under 4 minutes behind today. You can see the different glide in terms of skis coming around this final bend, and if your skis aren't gliding well, you've got no chance in these cross-country races with the terrain that you're climbing up and over. But 73 on his slower skis around the bend, the quicker athlete from Romania. And good to see some of these lower ranked athletes coming into the finish, but nowhere near the time of this man, Maurice Magnificat, with a time of, well, just over 1 hour, 6 minutes and 47 seconds of all-out racing, and having climbed just under 1,100 meters within that journey. 75, the athlete behind Hilg from Liechtenstein. We saw him out on the track. He's put in a solid finish to his 30 kilometers and a shade over 5 minutes behind. Well, just as a refresher, of course, it was Jontrud Sundby who took the victory. Maurice Magnificat second place, 20 seconds behind, and Anders Glursen from Norway third position, 28 seconds behind. Some other big names: Petter Northug in 6th position, Heikkinen in 11th position. Belov, we saw glued, stuck in behind Andrew Musgrave for a lot of his race, certainly assisted him on his journey. Belov 12th position. Ilya Chernusov, the bronze medalist from the Olympic Games 50 kilometer, down in 14th and 1:44. Behind him is Dario Colonia, disappointingly the local man, the favourite for the fans to win today, but 1:45 off in 15th position. Alex Harvey off form, nearly 2 minutes behind in 22nd position. And in the end, Andrew Musgrave, 2:27 behind in 32nd position. So faded just a little in the last quarter of the race. Started strong. Well, first 2 kilometers started very efficiently. Then he picked up the pace, riding in 20th to 24th position, and eventually dropping down to 32nd. Well, last man on the start sheet today, there he is, Müller from Denmark. And still a way to go for Müller, some 7:50 behind at the moment. And I'll tell you what, that is still good racing. Not the finance, not the backup, not anywhere near the backup of most of the rest of the teams taking part here. So really good to see some of the lower ranked athletes out on the tracks. Well, lower ranked, good to see Bjorn Dali out. He's got the Bjorn Dali kids race on later this evening, some 450. Well, he used to power his way up these hills, and not quite the same anymore. I'm sure he's aware that he's being filmed. Technique looking pretty good, and he's been retired for somewhat 13 years or more, actually. 15 years since he was at the races. Well, when he sees that playback, he won't be impressed that he took the wrong line in the exit to that bend. But good to see Bjorn Dali on the tracks here in Davos. And of course, he's won a couple of times here, I think, in his career. Well, good to see Huang at the races as well, bib number 82, so he's been passed by Muller on the track and 10:33 behind. And with the Olympic Games, the next Olympic Games, 2000 Winter Olympic Games 2018 in Korea, they really have put a lot of investment, bringing in top coaches, giving the best advice to the Korean team, and improving along the way. Well, I didn't catch what was said there, but congratulations from Petter Northug to Jontrud Sundby. And boy, does he deserve it. Just on brilliant form this season. And well, he had nearly 200 points lead coming into this World Cup. He will have over, I think, 200 points lead by the end of today. And that's a huge margin with just 3 World Cups now complete. Of course, we've got the sprint races tomorrow, which they're all within the stadium, so thankfully we will be able to see every millimetre of snow on the tracks tomorrow for the sprint competition. As Maurice Magnificat is talking through the talking through the fast descents and then the exits of the fast descents into the next climb. Well, I mentioned the sprints tomorrow. They will be in the morning, 10:45 Central European time. Here we are, 10:45 it is, and that's the men and women's sprints. Absolutely exciting races. It's a very tactical course here for the sprint competition, and you need to get your right race line into the stadium, into this part of the stadium, into the big climb which is to the left, and it really is a tactical event tomorrow. Petter Northug most likely will be taking part even after 30 kilometers today, and so will many of the athletes taking part today. Will they have any energy left? Will those who opted out of today's 30 kilometre stand themselves a better chance tomorrow? I think they will, but we shall have to wait and see tomorrow at 10:45 to see what that outcome is. So the final bend and the final 100 meters to go for the Ukrainian Karashovsky, and just under 9 minutes I think he'll finish behind Jontrud Sundby. Well, 8:50 behind Jontrud Sundby. It's good racing, but it's 77th position for him. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have, and David Goldstrom. It's been a fantastic day here in Davos. I'm sure tomorrow we'll see the same blue skies, and well done to the podium winners, Jontrud Sundby, Magnificat and Glorson. So from myself, Mike Dixon, thanks for your company and goodbye for now.